A year or two ago, Richard Dearlove is the head of MI6, the British equivalent of the CIA. Prince Bandar bin Sultan, Bandar Bush, the head of Saudi security, or the head of Saudi's equivalent of the CIA, and the one-time U.S. ambassador, says to the British head of their CIA, their MI6, he says, "The time is not far off in the Middle East, Richard, when it will be literally God help the Shia. More than 1 billion Sunnis have simply had enough of them." Now, Dearlove headed MI6 from 1999 to 2004. He says, according to this article by Cockburn, he says, he's speaking of Dearlove, he does not doubt the substantial and sustained funding from private donors in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, to which the authorities may have turned a blind eye, has played a central role in the ISIS surge into Sunni areas of Iraq. So, in other words, the head of the British MI6, the British CIA, says, no doubt about it, ISIS is doing their work because Saudi Arabia is paying them. And not just Saudi Arabia, Qatar as well. Cockburn refers to this as Dearlove's explosive revelation. He says it has attracted surprisingly little attention. There were several articles about his interview, but virtually none of them mentioned his making that comment. Cockburn goes on to say, Dearlove sees Saudi's strategic thinking as being shaped by two deeply seated beliefs or attitudes. First, they are convinced that there can, quote, be no legitimate or admissible challenge to the Islamic purity of their Wahhabi credentials as guardians of Islam's holiest shrines. In other words, the Saudis are not interested in becoming more modern. They're not interested in becoming more tolerant. They're not interested in adopting a less 18th century version of Islam. They're totally in with Wahhabism. Perhaps more significantly, Cockburn writes, the Saudis believe that they possess a monopoly of Islamic truth, and this leads them to, quote, be deeply attracted toward any militancy which can effectively challenge Shi'ism. Coburn. Am I saying Cockburn? I think it's Coburn. No, it's pronounced Coburn, but it's spelled Cockburn. Okay, I've never met the guy or talked to him. To the rest of it. In any case, so Andrew Coburn writing about this. Basically, the Sunnis, the Saudis, think that one of their jobs is to wipe out the Shia. Now, Saddam Hussein held this belief too. He killed 1 million Shia on the Iraq-Iran border. We helped him. Don Rumsfeld went over and sold him the poison gas. Coburn points out that 15 out of 19 of the 9/11 hijackers were Saudi, as was bin Laden, and most of the private donors who funded 9/11. That's that 28-page report that the Senate came up with that we are still not allowed to see. That people like Bob Graham, who helped write it, the former senator from Florida, says, you've got to see this. I mean, Saudi Arabia paid for 9/11. Essentially. He goes on to note, and this was astonishing. When I read this, I just, my jaw dropped. United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton wrote in a December 2009 cable. Now, this came out of WikiLeaks. This is how we found out about this. Quote, Saudi Arabia remains a critical financial support base for Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and LET, which is Lashkar-e-Taliban in Pakistan, and other terrorist groups. This is the Secretary of State of the United States writing in a secure diplomatic cable to the State Department or to somebody else in the U.S. government that Saudi Arabia is funding terrorism in the region. Coburn goes on to say, for all of Maliki, we propped up the Maliki government, but it became a Shiite government in Iraq, so the Saudis were not happy with that. So how do we change this to a Sunni government like it used to be with Saddam? Well, let's send in some Sunni fighters. We'll call them ISIS. Andrew Coburn writes, for all his gargantuan Maliki's failings were not the reason why the Iraqi state is disintegrating. What destabilized Iraq from 2011 was the revolt of the Sunni in Syria and the takeover of that revolt by jihadis, who were often sponsored by donors in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. He writes, Saudi Arabia has created a Frankenstein's monster over which it's rapidly losing control. The same is true of its allies such as Turkey. You know, there are stories out now, and I think that they're reasonably credible, that Turkey's actually supporting ISIS, if not directly and explicitly, then indirectly, because they're Kurdistan, the Kurds used to, the old Kurdistan country used to be Turkey, part of Syria, part of Iraq. And the Kurds are reestablishing their presence in Turkey, Iraq, and Syria. And the number one thing that Erdogan, the president, prime minister, whatever, the chief cook and bottle washer in Turkey hates is the Kurds. So, hey, you hate the Kurds, you support ISIS. Go take Mosul, have fun. Well, Mosul's not in Turkey, but you get the point. In fact, Andrew Coburn says the same is true of its allies such as Turkey, which has been a vital back base for ISIS and Jihad al-Nusra by keeping the 510-mile-long Turkish-Syrian border open. As Kurdish-held border crossings fall to ISIS, Turkey will find it has a new neighbor of extraordinary violence. So, I think we need to be, if we're going to play a role in the region, it needs to be humanitarian supportive of civilization. B, if we're going to play a military role in the region, it needs to be secondary and subordinate to people in the region who we are allies with and to accomplish some reasonable goal. And C, there's no reasonable goal that we should care about in that region, in my opinion, other than just general stability, which is historically what we've supported. It's one of the reasons why we've supported dictators in the region, and we continue to support dictators in the region. The Saudi royal family, they're dictators. So let them fight their own damn war, but let's do it with our eyes open. Right? To simply say, oh, yeah, Saudi Arabia, they got the fourth largest military budget in the world. Let them fight the war. We have to also point out, let them fight the war against the group, ISIS, that they created, that is carrying on their Wahhabist tradition. This is serious stuff. Why are we in the middle of this? I mean, outside of the stupid response to 9/11 that George W. Bush engaged in, thinking that it would allow him to privatize Social Security, the Republican dream. He thought he could pull it off if only he had a war.